We'll call the meeting of the Minot City Council to order for today. It is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022, 5:30 in the afternoon. I'd just like to remind everyone in the audience or at the dais to go ahead and put your electronic devices on vibrate or silent. We'll keep the distractions down to a minimum. Roll call, please.
Evans. Here. Janser.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Pittner.
Here.
Quadrigula.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Sitma.
Here. Number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 3 on our agenda today is the Mayor's Report. 3.1 is the Hess Grant Award for capital purchase of an air compressor. The Minot Fire Department was awarded funding from the Hess Corporation for the purchase of a new breathing air compressor. This compressor is used to fill self-contained breathing apparatuses for the response involving fires, hazardous material, confined space, and any other incidences that the quality of air is compromised. This grant was awarded from the North Dakota Hess Force Donation and Sponsor Program for the amount of $41,533.85. You may remember that this was on our agenda about a month ago and was pulled specifically for an opportunity to have the Director of North Dakota Operations, Mr. Brent Lonis, with us today. And Brent is here, so if Derek, you could bring up the front camera. I'm going to walk around front here for just a moment before we take a motion on the item. So Brent, first and foremost, thank you so much for being here. We know that it's not you don't spend all of your time in North Dakota. You're bounced around quite a bit, and this is also an exceptional opportunity for us from Hess, as it's not always able to be fully funded by the Hess Corporation. So with that, Chief, I'm hoping this goes a long way for Fire Station number 5, and more so, there was an individual that had submitted the grant. Was that correct?
Right here.
All right. So with that, first and foremost, thank you for putting in the application. And I might bring you over here to just tell us a little bit about putting the grant application together. Congratulations.
I do not like speaking.
Yeah, you do.
Well, it's not our first Hess grant that we've received. We've received a couple in the past. Nothing by far this large. So I just appreciate the opportunity to put an application in and accept it.
So I'll move you over here. And Chief and Brent, yes, thank you. I've got 2 Brents here. First and foremost, Mr. Lonis, we can't say thank you enough. We know that Hess has done a lot for the community, not only being here in Minot. We greatly appreciate, of course, we long have said we're the gateway to the Bach, and having Hess here means a lot to the community with all of the employment opportunities, but the community partnership that you've done not only with the fire department, but just recently donated for the 1,000 Tree Program and many others. So Brent, thank you so much for being such a great community partner and, being able to provide Minot citizens, with this kind of opportunity to buy equipment. So thank you. How about a big round of applause for our Hess folks? For a picture.
All right. Get uncomfortably close.
And Brent, before you leave here, there is one other thing that I just do have to say. For being a community partner and going above and beyond for the Mayor's Coin, we certainly do greatly appreciate that, and I hope you can add that to your collection. And if you want to say a few words?
I just want to say thank you to Mayor Simpma and for all things that you do, as well as the first responders in the community and everything that you do for the community. We're happy this request was presented to us, and even more happy that we were able to fund it. So thank you, and please keep us in mind for future opportunities like this.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
How do they feel about roads?
So with that, we are still on 3.1. We have two recommendations before us, that the first, City Council approve and accept the grant award for the air compressor, and two, recommend the City Council approve the budget amendment to increase the donation fund revenue and capital equipment expenditures for an air compressor purchase to be made using the donated funds.
So moved. Oh,
Motion
Second.
by Alderman Janser, second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion on the motion to approve. Any discussion? Final call for discussion. The motion is to approve both recommendations. Please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Item 3.2 is a proclamation for the Engineers Week. City of Minot Mayor proclaims February 20 through the 26th as Engineers Week, whereas the engineers use their scientific and technical knowledge and skills in creative and innovative ways to fulfill society's needs, and whereas the engineers face the major technological challenges of our time, from rebuilding cities devastated by natural disasters, cleaning up the environment, ensuring safe, sustainable, and cost-effective infrastructure is designed and constructed to meet the needs of society. And whereas the engineers are encouraging our young math and science students to realize the practical power of their knowledge, and whereas we will look more than ever to engineers and their knowledge and skills to meet the challenge of the 21st century. Now, therefore, do I, Sean Sitman, the mayor of Minot, hereby proclaim February 20 through the 26th, 2022 as Engineering Week in Minot, in recognition of the important past work and future contributions provided by the engineers within our community and their vital role in creating safe and reliable infrastructure for the city of Minot and its residents. So we'll make sure that our engineers over in Public Works get a copy of the proclamation. Thank you. That is the end of the mayor's report for tonight. Number 4 is the city manager's report. Mr. City Manager.
So as always, included in your packet, available to you as the council as well as the public is our report. I would also give special note to some of the attachments in there with some valuable information that's available to the public as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have with regards to the city manager's report this meeting.
Any questions for our city manager on the contents of the report?
Not hearing any questions, just a couple of matters. First and foremost, over the last few weeks, there's been some chatter a little bit from some city employees with regards to some concerns with regards to the city of Minot as an employer, and I just want to emphasize publicly that we're very committed to providing a safe and fair work environment as best as we can, and that my office is always available to hear any concerns from any of our employees, especially when it comes to safety issues and those types of things. And again, would reemphasize again that I'm always happy to sit down and take a serious look at those, and if there's things that we need to change, then we'll do what we can to change those. But often that these are often can be complicated situations, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to always be able to do things the way people want them to be done, but we will try to do them in a way that is safe and fair, because we want our employees to take pride in the fact that they work for us as an organization at all times and in all places. And then speaking of safety, I'd like to invite Chief Klug to come up and speak a little bit with regards to any current updates we have with our 911 phone system and availability of 911 for calls for service.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I think most of you were made aware of the 911 system going down today. Just before the meeting, around 5 o'clock this evening, it finally came back up, but it was down from about 9:30 this morning until 5 o'clock. This is the longest period of time that this has happened. It's the third time that 911 has gone down in the past, I think it's a little over a year. It seems like we've been told a number of different things with this system. We're told there's redundancy, but somehow both the system and the redundancy has failed on 3 occasions. This one is evidently an issue, at least what we're being told at this point, an issue with fiber optic in Fargo, but they're still doing research on that. In about a week's time, I'll receive a report that should give us a little bit better understanding of what took place and what the findings were, but that's what we know for now. could entertain any
Thank-
questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Mr. Klug? Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager.
My final report would be, we do have the 3 employee committees up and running. So we have employee committees with representatives from each department looking at a full comprehensive update of our personnel policies, as well as a committee that's looking at employee recognition, both short-term and long-term recognitions. And then finally, an employee committee that's providing input to management with regards to performance evaluations. And those committees are meeting and working hard, and express my gratitude to those employees that have stepped up and are volunteering and serving in those capacities. And I look forward to their recommendations here in the near future. But other than that, unless council has any other questions, I don't have anything else to report this evening.
Any questions for the city manager at this time? If not, Mr. City Manager, I do have one item to pass along on behalf of a couple of citizens this morning that fall under the full scope of umbrellas. There was a couple of water main breaks, evidently, again, with our fluctuating temperatures. So the residents in Northwest Minot greatly appreciate the crews working in 18 below to get that repaired. So please pass along the appreciation from some of the folks in Northwest Minot, and I'm sure other areas as well. All right, that takes us on to number 5. This is considered the report of the Magic Fund Screening Committee. The annual compliance report for the Magic Fund Screening Committee is attached to our packet. Is there a representative from the Magic Fund? I think the original sitting president was supposed to be here and then ran into a conflict and was not able to be here. Perhaps our finance director, Mr. Lakefield, could say a few words here.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Chairman Olson is unable to attend this evening. I can try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding the compliance report on the Magic Fund? Just going through for the public's acknowledgement here is that the Brady Martz Company did the independent accounts report for the process and procedures, and all of the outlined information regarding the actual Magic Fund itself is attached to the agenda today. Seeing no questions, I think that will take care of it. Thank you, Mr. Lakefield. All right, that takes us to number 6, and this is considered the report of the Planning Commission. The first item is a public hearing on the tracks, a public hearing to consider an application from Blake Nybakken representing Henry Land Holding LLC for a zoning map amendment from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to C2, the General Commercial District, with a PUD overlay planned unit development. The proposal seeks to establish 7 mid-rise buildings up to 90 feet tall, with 4 of the 7 buildings comprised of commercial on the first floor and residential on the second floor and above. The remaining 3 buildings will solely be residential use. The proposal will include 468 residential units, approximately 53,277 square feet of commercial space, and 2 plazas. I think we've got a little feedback from Alderwoman Olson on the phone. 2 additional buildings to accommodate drive-through food retail are also proposed. A plat containing 12 lots is also proposed to delineate the various buildings and uses on the site and is to be known as the Highlander Estates 4th Edition. The subject property is legally described as Lot 13, Highlander's East Estate Subdivision, Section 34, Township 155 North, Range 83 West, Ward County in North Dakota. The property is unaddressed and is located west of 2251 36th Avenue Southwest and north of the new Trinity Hospital. The recommendations to the full City Council is 1, the preliminary plat for the Highlander Estate 4th Edition to approve, and 2, an ordinance on first reading for a zoning map amendment from C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to C2 General Commercial District with a PUD overlay planned unit development. Mr. Billingsley is here for additional information.
Good afternoon, Mayor Sitma and members of the council. I placed on your desk some revisions to the conditions of approval. There's only 2 of them. Derek, if you can put it on the screen, please, for Alderwoman Olson, who's not here. Thank you. We're recommending revisions to condition number 11 and condition number 16. Condition number 11 is just basic wordsmithing that the applicant brought to our attention. And then condition 16, it was a miscommunication between staff and the applicant. We were fortunate to catch it before it came before us today. That would make the sign, the video board that's going to go up in their property, the same size video board that you'll find at their West Fargo property. So with that, I stand available for questions, and the applicant is here to answer your questions as well.
Any questions for Community Development Director at this time? Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And at this time, this is a public hearing for anyone to come forward and speak on the item, whether it is in favor or in opposition or neutral to the recommendations for the City Council. Good afternoon. If you would just go ahead and state your name and city of residence, please.
Todd Burning, not a city resident, but I've been here for a week with my mom and dad, so I guess that kind of counts. Anyway, and I'm not Blake either. We switched spots because of the storm out east. But I am with Epic, and I represent the project. And I just wanted to, I'm really working on two different things, and I asked Brian if I could speak tonight, and he said, well, it is a public hearing. So real quick, the tracks and the Big M building. There are two of them that sometimes I think I should be in a padded cell. They're challenging, and there's not a book on them. And we've done projects like this in other communities around the state, mainly West Fargo, Fargo, and Grand Forks. And I just can't thank enough of the leadership and the team under the city manager. These things are not, putting a blockbuster video on a lot. They're much more complicated than that, and it just takes everybody working together and communication. And I think that's gone really, really well. We don't win all the battles. The city doesn't win all the battles. We work together to get to where we need to be. And I think that's really been evident the last 3 or 4 months as we've really rolled up our sleeves. I just wanted to thank everybody and appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Burning. Once again, this is a public hearing for anyone to come forward and speak in favor, in opposition, or neutral to the recommendations before us. Seeing none, what are the wishes of council?
Move the recommendations.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing and approve the recommendations by Alderwoman Evans, second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes. Motion is approved. That takes us to 6.2. This is the subdivision of outlots 24 and 25. The recommendations to the City Council was to approve the subdivision plat to create outlots 24 and 25 being located in the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 34, Township 155, North, Range 82 West, here in Ward County in North Dakota. Alderman Janser.
Move the recommendation.
Motion by Alderman Janser to approve the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. Any discussion? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Motion is approved. That is the end of the section for the Planning Commission. That takes us to number 7, consent items. There were 7.1 through 7.15, and we're pulling 7.7 tonight. Do any of these individual items need to be pulled for individual consideration?
Nope.
If not, they will be passed with the recommendations from staff. What are the wishes of council?
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to approve
Second.
7.1 through 7.6 and 7.8 through 7.15. A second by Alderwoman Evans. Any discussion? Any discussion? Final call on the discussion for approval. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to Section 8. These are the action items of our agenda this evening. 8.1 is the 2021 proposed ordinance for the line items over budget. Department budgets must reflect the correct amounts for the 2021 ACFR. Adjustments are necessary, so no department report amounts not appropriated. This budget amendment does include grants and unforeseen items not anticipated when the 2021 budget was adopted. The recommendations to the council is to pass an ordinance to amend the 2021 annual budget to adjust department budgets for the funds approved by the city council for various grants, donations, bond costs, and transfers between funds.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Janser to approve, a second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to 8.2, the roll-off truck award of bid project number 4642. On February 8th, 2022, the Public Works Department opened bids for a new roll-off truck for the Sanitation Department. There were 2 bidders, and the tabulation are as follows. The first bidder was RDO Truck Center Company for the Mack Galbraith pricing at $185,516. The second was Wesley Truck Center with the Freightliner Galbraith at $172,143. The recommendations to the council is to award the bid to Wesley Truck Center in the amount of $172,143 for the roll-off truck, and 2, recommend the council approve the budget amendment to move additional funds into the capital equipment line item to cover the shortfall. What are the wishes of council?
So move.
yeah.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Ross to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 8.3 is the 2022 Edison Safe Route to Schools Award of Bid number 4505. On Friday, February 11th, 2022, at 9:30 a.m., bids were opened for the Edison Safe Route to Schools project. The engineering department recommends that the Edison Safe Route to Schools project be awarded to Tyzac Concrete Incorporated with their bid of $1,038,915.95. The recommendations to the full council is to award the bid for the Edison Safe Route to Schools project to the low bidder, Tyzac Concrete, in the amount of $1,038,915.95. 2 is to approve the budget amendment ordinance, and 3, authorize the mayor to sign the agreement upon concurrent of award from the North Dakota Department of Transportation, also known as NDDOT.
Move approval.
Motion by Alderwoman Evans to approve, second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes. Motion is approved. Our next item is 8.4, Fire Station Number 5, award of bid. This is FD 0024. Fire Station 5 has been planned for 5 years with the purchase of land and the RFQ for architectural designs in 2017. Due to the budget shortages, this project was delayed until the 2022 budget. Fire Station Number 5 was placed out for bid, opened February 3rd, 2022, and the attached bid tabulation, attached bid tabulation is attached. The recommendations to the full council is approval of the bid for Fire Station 5 construction project, 2, authorize the mayor to sign the necessary documents, and 3, recommend the council pass an ordinance on first reading to amend the 2022 budget and approve the use of capital infrastructure funds, fund reserves. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Alderman Padragula to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Padragula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Number 8.5 is concerning Minot International Airport, the contract for runway pavement rehab design. The primary runway at the Minot International Airport, runway 1331, is experiencing surface deterioration in isolated areas along the length of the runway pavement, and the SEH has determined the delamination of some panels during an evaluation period. The cross runway at the Minot International Airport, runway 826, is also experiencing pavement deterioration. The three recommendations to the council is approval of the runway pavement rehab design to be conducted by Short Elliott Hendrick Incorporated, SEH, and 2, recommend the approval of the proposed ordinance on first reading, and 3, authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Janser to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Any discussion on the motion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Podjagula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Motion is approved. 8.6, contract for the snow removal equipment SRE acquisition, also dealing with the international airport. This project will replace existing airport snow removal equipment that has reached the end of its useful life.
Now join.
Unit 313 is currently a 1986 Idaho Northland snowblower. The equipment is antiquated and parts have become obsolete, making the machine unreliable and difficult and no longer cost-effective to repair. Unit 311 is a 1977 Fiat Alice loader. This piece of equipment is also obsolete and parts are hard to obtain. Per the FAA standards, antiquated snow removal equipment is required, adequate snow removal equipment is required for snow and ice control at the airport. And for the international airport, the clearance standard is 1/2 hour to clear 1 inch of snow in all Priority 1 areas. Priority 1 areas include the runway 1331, commercial apron, ARFF station and apron, and related taxiways. The new state-of-the-art equipment is needed to achieve the FAA mandated removal times. The 3 recommendations to the council is to approve the snow removal equipment SRE acquisition assistance proposal to be conducted by Short Elliott Hendricks Incorporated, SEH, and 2, recommend the approval of the proposed ordinance on first reading, and 3, authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. What are the wishes of council?
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Pittner to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderwoman Evans. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Podjagula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Our final item in our action item section is the Vehicle Diagnostic Equipment Project number 4634. The vehicle maintenance shop is currently using handheld code scanners as well as laptop computers with manufacturers' diagnostic software installed to troubleshoot vehicle systems. The current handheld scanners are outdated, and even with the yearly software upgrades, are unable to perform all the required diagnostics on the current fleet. The Vehicle Maintenance Budget Fund in 2022 for the purchase of new vehicle diagnostic equipment with the recommendations before us is council approve the budget amendment in the amount of $1,214.46 to fund the shortfall of vehicle diagnostic equipment for Snap-on Industrial. What are the wishes of council?
Move approval.
Motion by Alderman Ross to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Janser. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Final call for discussion. Seeing none, the motion is to approve. Please call the roll.
Ross,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Podjagula,
Yes.
Motion is approved. That is the end of our action item section. The next item is number 9, and this is personal appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone to come forward and speak on any item that is or is not on our agenda. I would ask if you do come forward to just state your name and city of residence. One more call for personal appearances. Seeing none, next item is 10.1, the Finance Department update, and we have our Finance Director, Mr. David Lakefield, here with us this evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit this evening, just to give you some information at a high level of how things are closing out for the 2021 year and some things that we're looking forward to in 2022. We're already starting to have discussions on budget preparation for the 2023 budget that will be beginning here in a few months, and looking for some input and guidance from the council. So we thought we'd get some of this information out in front of you a little ahead of that, so we have some time to digest it and ask questions before we dive into the budget process. So we're going to set the stage a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about revenue results, again at a fairly high level. As I started putting this information together and trying to complete it over the weekend, if I went into the detail I originally had on the outline, we'd be here, we'd have to take a dinner break and come back, I think. So we really condensed it. We're going to try and present this at a high level. Again, speaking about some of the revenue results, expenditure results, the budget overall for 2021, some highlights of some of the grants that were received, a little bit of discussion about ARPA funding and its allowed uses, and then a little bit of discussion on the 2023 budget approach that'll be coming up. A couple of caveats here. All numbers that we talk about here tonight are preliminary, and they are also unaudited. We'll begin our audit process here in a few weeks, so these are still subject to change, but we're far enough along in the process that we can talk about the general concept. Sales tax. So you, members of the council, have seen this graph a number of times, and the bold green line is the 2021 sales tax collections. The numbers were up. We had a very good year for sales tax collection. Earlier today, we got the results for the January payment of sales tax. That big black dot on the left-hand part of the screen is January sales tax collection. So 76% ahead of last year's January numbers. So it's optimistic. We're optimistic that we're at least getting started on the right foot. We'll see if it carries out through the entire year. By the time we get to budget season, we'll have a few months worth of collections to reflect on. So we'll take a look and see how that's going to play out. So this is just a graph showing the total sales tax collections for the last 6 years. And again, you can see here that 2021 was a good year for sales tax collections. This is Hub City revenue, again, for the last 6 years. Less than it was back in 2016, right before the oil production dropped off substantially. There's been a change in the formula here in this time period as well. And again, this is driven by a combination of production and price. And there's a bit of a lag time here. So as the price continues to climb, we would anticipate that the revenues would continue to climb here as well, as long as we don't see a significant drop off in production. Property taxes, excuse me, just a little bit of basic information, and sometimes I see comments made on social media or in conversations with folks, and I don't think that this is common knowledge about what property tax pays for. So in our 2021 budget, property tax funded approximately 18% of the city's budget. And in the 2022 budget, that number dropped to about 15% of the city's budget. So when you break that down, we look at just property tax revenues, approximately 76% of the city's property tax revenues are used to fund public safety. That includes police, fire, dispatch, narcotics, task force, and the municipal court. And the bulk of that, about 64% of the total property taxes, go just to fund employee costs for public safety. If we add in the street department budget, the property taxes are not enough to fund public safety, and the street department budget would be several $1 million short. So that doesn't include any of the other general government, city council, city manager, city attorney, finance office, HR, property maintenance, the city shops, all these other general fund departments that get funding from someplace else. Charges for services and other revenues are a big component of our general fund revenue that we have, and they include things like permits, zoning fees, the fleet labor charges that get charged to our enterprise funds, interest revenue, court fines. There's also federal and state revenues that come through there. But the charges for services, those were about 8% below budget. So we're fortunate, the one thing with property taxes, they're relatively stable. We control the rate. We generally know the value. It's just a matter of if and when they're collected, and generally over time, they are collected. These other charges for services are somewhat beyond our control. We're dependent on economic forces outside the city's control, and it's an estimate when we budget those. Fortunately, other revenues like the state's revenue sharing, which is a component of the state's collection of sales tax, were higher than anticipated to offset some of these shortfalls of revenue. Grants, we had a number of grants that came through the DCIP grant, and that is the second grant from a DCIP grant the city has been awarded, and that was to fund a portion of the MI5 phase of flood control, just over $9.8 million. ARPA funds, the city was awarded $7.4 million in ARPA funds. We've actually gotten the payment for the first half of that. And then the airport received CRRSA and ARPA funds, again, of just over $7 million. And then there were a number of other grants to fund other activities. The example was the HES grant earlier on the agenda. So there's a number of those items as well. Expenditures, and again, this is going to be just a high level. The good news with the general fund expenditures, we came in about $3.2 million under budget, and that's a good thing. We make a guess at what we're going to spend on these items about 18 months in advance. Items like snow removal and repairs on buildings and equipment and vehicles are highly variable. So sometimes we're able to manage that and come in under our budget. Unfortunately, one of the big line items that we saved money on was on full-time employee costs. And unfortunately, that's because we have vacant positions, and that's a challenge as well when you have minimum staffing requirements for police and fire activities. You don't have enough staff. So inevitably what happens, we save money on the full-time employee line item, but we usually end up spending it on the overtime budget. There's a number of accounts that we either exceeded the budget or were very close at the end of 2021, and these are going to be areas of concern for monitoring the 2022 budget and also preparation of the 2023 budget. And some of those items are things like fuel costs. Obviously, the price of fuel has increased tremendously since we developed the 2022 budget. Utility costs, and primarily what I'm referring to here are natural gas and electricity costs. The cost of natural gas is a component of what we're billed, and as that continues to rise, that's something that we really have to monitor. Other items that we don't really think about too often, things like water meters, equipment, or raw materials, or the water mains, street maintenance costs with the cost of crude oil the way it is, asphalt's getting more expensive, concrete's getting more expensive, steel is getting more expensive. All of these items are going to propose or have some challenges for us in developing the new budget. And travel and training costs I put on here, and we actually had a surplus in these two line items at the end of 2021, and a significant budget savings in 2020 as well. And the reason we have that here for concern is because travel was limited for a good portion of 2021 and 2020. And eventually those training needs are going to come around full circle, and we're going to have to play catch up with the increased cost of fuel, transportation. All those things are going to get more expensive as well. So while we're playing catch up, it's probably going to cost us more money as well. Some ARPA funding. I just wanted to put some information out there. I think most of you are probably well aware of what the ARPA funding is. There are a significant number of limitations to this, and I listed those here. A lot of these are things that are typically not within our scope of services that we do here in city government. The one item that would probably qualify as replacing lost public sector revenue, and there's a formula that go through to do that. We're not going to be able to use that formula to justify all of the ARPA funding that we've been allocated. The last item here is most likely where we're going to look at for the use of those ARPA funds, and that's investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. The city currently doesn't provide broadband services to citizens, so that's most likely not going to be here. So we're going to be looking at water, sewer, and storm sewer also qualifies in this example. Okay, Derek, I think I'm jammed up here. Oh, there we go. Another slide, what is not allowed? We can't make deposits to the pension fund. We can't fund or pay off our debt service. We can't pay legal settlements and judgments. We can't put it away for a rainy day. And we can't use it for infrastructure projects outside of water, sewer, and broadband. So it's very restrictive of what we can use those funds for. Some potential uses, and we've had some discussions about this in the past. We're just going to highlight this particular project. This has been on the radar screen, I think, since I came back to the city here in 2017. This is a large storm sewer project. Part of it is replacing existing storm sewer and then expanding that. One of the challenges here is that the existing system is decaying and is a problem. It's not big enough, so in significant rain events, it creates flooding on 16th Street and back into Green Acres area, with the expectation that the hospital is going to be coming online out in that part of town. Flooding of 16th Street, which is one of the major corridors to get to the hospital, becomes problematic. So this is an example of a project that would fit the requirements, and probably it's a project that we've had some challenges in how to fund this in the past, so it'll probably be a good fit. And this is just a map to show how big the benefit area is on this project. The dashed lines up in the upper right-hand corner represent the city limits. So there's a big portion of this, the benefiting area, that's outside of the city limits. And that proposes a problem for us. Typically on these storm sewer projects, we use storm sewer development funds, and we typically special assess a portion of these projects as well. With a large portion of this being outside of the city limits, we have to hold those special assessments in abeyance until they would be annexed into the city. And some of that will probably be a long time out. And in the meantime, we'd have to service that debt from other funding sources. And it would also be, a hurdle for further development to that property out in that part of town. So this is just a close-up example around here, and the blocks that are highlighted there are parcels that we would expect would be developed in the next 20 years. All right, a little bit on the budget approach for 2023. The last several years, we've operated with basically revenue constrained, where we made a conscious effort not to increase our mill rate. We've enjoyed a little bit of an increase in values the last few years, so that's given us a little bit of room to work to counteract the effects of inflation. We'll see what happens this year. I don't know what we're going to have for an increase in values yet. Certainly inflation is going to be difficult, and I don't anticipate that we're going to keep up with inflation. I just wanted to highlight some of the uncertainty in revenue streams. Again, we're off to a good start with sales tax collections. But again, they're highly variable, and we don't know what the rest of the year is going to turn out like, let alone into 2023. The one relatively stable revenue source that we have is property tax collections. Expenditure constraints, we're already starting to have some conversations with department heads on where to start with their budget. Obviously, there's going to be some requests. We had a number of them for new staff positions last year that weren't funded. I would anticipate that we will probably have some of those resurface. But our expectation is that we're going to have to start and basically operate within a very similar budget to what we had for 2022. That'll be a starting point, and we'll work from there. The other item that we have here is evaluating service levels. A person had once used the picture or the analogy to me in talking about construction, that you can have things quickly, you can have them high quality, or you can have them inexpensive. You can't have all three. You can have two of the three. And that applies here to other things that we do too. Primarily things like, I'll use snow removal as an example. We can have high quality snow removal. We can have it happen very quickly, but it's not going to be inexpensive if we do that. So that's where the service level evaluation comes in. We have to decide what level of service is expected, and we'll have to craft our budget accordingly. This is just an illustration that we used over the weekend. I'd seen some chatter about, again, Minot's tax rates. So I just wanted to use this for some illustration. And oftentimes, I don't think people understand, what portion of the city's budget is actually funded with property tax. And this just goes to show some of the other taxes that are out there with other communities in North Dakota, primarily special assessments and sales taxes. So when you look at Minot's mill levy on itself, we're one of the higher mill rates for a city in the state. But then when you compare the other revenue sources that most of these cities utilize and equate that back to a mill equivalent, Minot actually falls in the middle of this group of 7 cities here as well. Furthermore, if you go and take into consideration that over half of our sales tax collections at this point in time are used to fund flood control projects and the NAS project, that makes a huge difference in how much that funding is available for other purposes. This is a further illustration when you look at the total mill levy. So you add in all the other taxing entities that fall in here, including the special assessments and sales tax for the cities, and Minot drops a little further down the list here too. So when you look at apples to apples comparisons, there's more to look at than just the mill rate. Some departments some changes in the finance department. We have some news. Penny Johnson has announced she's going to be retiring April 29th. She is the city treasurer. So we have interviews are scheduled next week for that position with some internal candidates. We have another additional retirement that we're anticipating next summer. And also I just wanted to throw out there too that Penny had some other exciting news. She got married last week too. So lots of life changes for her. And then the utility billing software is scheduled to go live April 18th. And Penny's been driving that project too. So she's going to be busy the next couple of months before she rides off into the sunset. So, and they're making a lot of progress. I just want to highlight some of the changes and why this upgrade to our utility billing software is necessary. This is an example of an existing bill. If you get an email utility bill from the city, this is what you get in your email right here. So I made the joke earlier today with some of my finance folks that you need the secret decoder ring from the cereal box to read it and be able to understand it. And it's a little bit cryptic. It's not really nice. And I think that prohibits us from converting more folks to the email billing and online payments. This one's a little fuzzy, but this is what it'll look like in the future with the new system. So what you see or get emailed to you will be essentially a PDF of what a regular utility billing statement will look like. We anticipate these will be color. It's going to have consumption history on the bottom, all the components and broken down. So it's going to look like a modern utility bill that you would get from any of the major utility companies. That's the end of my update, so I'd happily answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Lakefield. I appreciate all the work that went into that report, especially on the aspect of showing the full taxable value on that that is often brought up, not only budget time, but throughout the year. gives a good picture. So hopefully you'll be working with PIO and his crew to help get that out there throughout the year. Any questions for Mr. Lakefield at this time? Mr. City Manager.
Not a question, but this presentation was not included in the packet, but we will have that available on the city's website tomorrow morning and have that available to the public and to the council. So if anyone wants to look over those numbers, it'll be available.
Okay. Alderwoman Evans.
So I don't know, Dave, if this is a question for you or Harold, but whoever can take it. So how, if at all, is the results of the community survey going to impact any 2023 budgeting?
So it'll have a major role in the upcoming budget process. All department heads have been instructed to develop goals and objectives for their department specifically. If you remember, last year we did the department tours, so they'll be reviewing how they view those survey results for their department specifically, what goals and objectives they have developed with that, and then that'll be a key piece in the strategic planning process with the council being involved on how we implement your priorities based off of those community surveys in conjunction with your city aspirations that you have in place. So we'll be combining all of that together through the budget process this year. And staff's excited about it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great.
Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave, just quickly, you touched on sales tax funding, flood control, NAS. What's the projected sunset date on collecting enough money for NAS? I've heard this. Is that still a moving target?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Pittner, I think at one point we were hopeful that we would have collected enough funding in 2022 or 2023 to sunset the NAS portion of the sales tax. However, and you saw this on a number of items on the agenda tonight, and we've seen it in a number of our bid openings that have happened here in the last few weeks, and those numbers are creeping up. So that could have a tremendous impact on how long that takes. And again, you know, the sales tax collections have looked really good. Just hopefully they'll stay stable. So that's a little bit of a non-committal answer, but
It's the answer I expected, and I appreciate, again, that we've seen that with inflation and whatnot. Like I say, some it can be a moving target, but 2022, 2023 is a number that I've heard in the past, but that's good enough for me.
And while we're on that issue of NAS, as we move forward within our, I think, budget discussions, I think it would also, I think for long-term planning, also taking a look at when that is paid off on what likely we'll need for the commitment to finish out flood control in terms of the sales tax revenues and whether that 68% of current is enough. I know it's not enough, but what level that we'll need to so that we can hopefully make informed decisions now and anticipate what's coming down the road. And I know that like you said, it's a moving target, but if we can start to get our hands around that perhaps now, we'd start planning for that down the road as well. Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave, maybe you mentioned this and I didn't catch it, but the ARPA funds and in anticipation of perhaps using them for that storm sewer project, is there a date by which those funds have to be expended?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Janser, I believe they have to be appropriated by 2024 and expended by 2026. So we have a little bit of time, but some of these projects are large projects and may be multiple construction years, so we certainly don't want to wait until the very end to get them going too. Yeah. And then we also anticipate as these federal dollars roll out there's going to be competition for resources in the realm of contractors and supplies to get these projects done as well.
Okay, thank you.
Very good point.
I have one more question.
Alderwoman Evans.
Maybe it's an issue of timing, but I didn't see any, for revenues or anything like that, anything contemplating the state legislature being in session and any asks or funds we may get there. Is that because we wouldn't expect that to be in 2023, it'd be 2024, or do we just not include that in our projections?
Mr. Mayor and Alderwoman Evans, typically, those types of funds that we would go to the legislature and ask for would be things for capital projects.
Okay.
They typically don't impact our operating budgets for the most part.
Okay.
You know, there are some exceptions to that rule as well, but generally, those asks that we would have would be capital in nature.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for our finance director at this time? Thank you, Dave. Again, we'll look for that presentation to be posted online here either tomorrow or in the very near future. 10.2 is the presentation by the retail coach. I would look to our city manager on that to see, do we have someone on the phone, or did we run into some travel situations here?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Alderwomen, we did run into some challenges today. Our presenter was meant to be here in person today, but he is waiting for an airplane to come from Minneapolis to Minot, as many of our travelers are doing today. But he is hoping to make it in this evening because we have some meetings scheduled for him throughout the community tomorrow as well. So the plan is still for him to be here at some point this evening, but we had to make a last-minute change. He is available on the phone to prepare his presentation, but I believe he's probably sitting in the Minneapolis airport, so if there's any background noise, it's nothing he can control. But we appreciate their willingness to make this last-minute adjustment because I think this is an important conversation for the council and the public to hear and be privy to. So with that, I believe Mr. Kyle Kofer is here representing Retail Coach and to provide some overview of the analytics they've done on our behalf and progress they've been making on our behalf as far as recruitment.
Good afternoon, or good evening there, Mr. Kofer. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear y'all. Can y'all hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine, sir. Please proceed.
Awesome. Well, you know, I was planning on being there in person, but I think, you know, Mother Nature had something else in mind. But, you know, kind of give you a brief overview. I've put together some slides, which I believe y'all have printed out in front of you. It's kind of a brief overview of what we've kind of covered, the data that we've knocked out, and then, you know, I close out with a little recruitment at the end. Just to kind of give you all a little roundup on what we do. We've been working on this project for about 6 months, and you know, our main goal is to help Minot recruit retailers and restaurants, whether that's national brands, regional brands, local brands as well. You know, we want to provide you know, a healthy mix of retailers and restaurants. You know, focusing on downtown versus the mall versus Broadway. Just an overall A to Z retail recruitment approach. If y'all kind of go to that first page in your packet titled Mobile Location Data, this is kind of the bread and butter, the foundation of what we do, which helps us determine the majority of our data. So basically what we're able to do is we're able to go in and draw polygons around specific areas in town and really get an idea, a factual representation of where consumers are traveling from to shop at specific locations in Minot. And how that works is it works based on cell phone ping. So I drew a specific polygon, which is the one that's featured in your slide deck there around Dakota Square Mall. And we're looking at roughly a 12-month period, and we're able to see how far these consumers are traveling, an estimated number of how many visits they're making, all based on, you know, mobile location services and their cell phone pinging within that specific mall area. And how it works, it determines the consumer's home location based on where that specific cell phone spends its time from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So it's some pretty powerful data. We're not going out there and selling it and saying, you know, so-and-so was here at this specific time. It's not that. It's really just a recruitment tool, something that we utilize to get a better understanding of what that retail trade area is, and also as a recruitment tool for retailers and restaurants. So if you kind of look down, so this is the Dakota Square Mall study that's looking at roughly the last 12 months from about 4 days ago. So there's an estimated number of 377,000 customers making roughly 3.85 million visits over the past 12 months, which is an extremely strong number, which proves y'all are a regional market, has an extremely large draw from all surrounding areas. And then you also get to see visit trends. So peaks and valleys throughout the year of when consumers were visiting the mall the most. You see right there around Christmas time is where you kind of see your peak there, and then it kind of goes off heading into the new year. But kind of some pretty powerful stuff there. And then what's really cool is the heat map. So this is really what shows that home location of where these consumers are coming from to shop at specific locations in town. So this is looking at one visit, like I said, over the past 12 months, and just how large your draw is. Pulling from all the way south to Bismarck, Devil's Lake, Belcourt, Kenmare, Williston, like I said, this just proves that y'all are a regional market, that, people from these areas, the darker red, are kind of where your higher concentration of consumers come from. Obviously, you see that right around my knot is your higher concentration, but you're also pulling a lot of people from Bismarck that are making multiple locations throughout the year. And like I said, this is looking at one visit, and then that next slide there that you have is looking at 4 visits. So, still a very large trade area showing where you're pulling from. You see a lot of red up there around the Air Force Base and things like that. And, what kind of stood out to me on the front end is there's some drop off from 1 visit to 4 visits, but not a ton. That means you're getting a lot of repeat customers, which was kind of shown in that initial slide there that gave an estimated number of 377,000 consumers making 3.85 million visits. And you can even build on this even more. It kind of lets us know favorite places. So those consumers that are all also shopping at the mall, where else are they going? They're going to Walmart, Southgate Crossing. They're also going to Kirkwood Mall, Pinehurst Square East, Menards. So it kind of gives us an idea of, what are the tendencies, what are the traits, where else are these consumers traveling? You get your customer journey, and then you also get what I consider kind of the spider map there down at the very bottom. So picture Dakota Square Mall as kind of the base of the spider, and it lets you know where people are coming before. So 40.6% are coming from home to Dakota Square Mall, then 44.6 are going home after. So, kind of some cool stuff to see there. You can also see hourly visits and daily visits. And then probably my favorite part of this is the zip code breakdown. So it kind of shows, based on all those consumers, all the visitors that are visiting over the 12 months, where are they coming from based on zip code? So for my knot specifically, 9.65% come from the 58701 area code, and then 6.60% come from the 58730 area code. So that just proves how much you're pulling from surrounding areas, which also proves and justifies that y'all are a major regional market. So really some cool data there that kind of backs up what you've already known. But we also went ahead and provided this for downtown as well. So we've worked closely with Harold and Jonathan and Brian on these these downtown boundaries, and we want to provide this for small business owners as well, because this is a useful tool for them. So we kind of went in and provided that same study. And like I said, this is looking at 12 months as well, but we also have the capabilities to go in and say, let's look at a 3-day period one weekend where there was an event held downtown, to where, that can be used as a marketing tool to say, hey, next time we have this, we pulled this number from, this specific area last year, we should maybe do some, targeting market to that Northeast area, and try to pull more people next year. So, this cell phone study is used on our side for the recruitment for national retailers and restaurants, but also can be used for existing business owners as well, which has been a good tool for us. I'll kind of skim this over fairly quickly since we went over the last one. But this is your heat map, kind of looking at one visit, fairly similar to Dakota Square Mall. But if you look at 4 visits for the downtown area, it shrinks pretty tremendously, which you kind of see that core retail trade area form of where these consumers are coming from to shop, eat, work in downtown Minot on a regular basis. Kind of moving through there, your favorite places. So Dakota Square Mall, Walmart, Southgate Crossing, Target, Trinity Hospital, the typical same stuff that we got from the other one. You have your spider map, which kind of, tracks prior and post locations. And then kind of skipping along, you can kind of see how much of a higher percentage downtown pulls from those Minot zip codes compared to Dakota Square Mall. So what that tells us is, downtown, yes, it has a regional draw, but it's not quite as large as Dakota Square Mall, which is, kind of hand in hand with what we see from, running, large malls compared to downtown throughout the country. Your larger, big box retailers, your Target, things like that, they're going to have the larger draw compared to downtown. But, that's just kind of how we look at it. So, if you're looking at this and you say, well, downtown doesn't have as large of a draw, that's not a negative thing at all. It's just kind of what we're seeing these days throughout the country. And then building on that, we kind of formalize what we consider our retail trade area. So, where consumers are traveling from on a regular basis, which is kind of backed up in that heat map. And what we do is we go in and based on that heat map, this is what we kind of drew as your primary retail trade area. You're pulling individuals from Bismarck but that's not really considered your primary, somebody who's coming day in and day out. We spend a lot of time on these retail trade areas because this is what we run the majority of our reports off of. And, if we were marketing Minot as just a community population, we would be selling yourself short because you're pulling from, all over the place. But this is what we kind of considered that primary retail trade area of where you're pulling from on a daily basis. And from that, we have run, tons of pages of reports, and we would be here all night if I was to go through all those. So I'm going to kind of hit the high points. This is what we considered our retail trade area market profile, which is what we send to retailers and restaurants on the front end. In the past, we would take pages and pages of data and send it to them, and they're kind of just like anybody else. They want to see, bits and pieces to where they know they could be successful in taking a deeper look at a market. And, this is kind of what we've determined and just doing this for 23 years is kind of the high points for these retailers, restaurants, and site selectors is they want to see population, incomes, educational attainment, race distribution, and age. And I'll tell you that 2021 retail trade area population of 175,000 is extremely strong. And I think that's evident with the amount of retail and restaurants you currently have. But, we still feel though there's a need for, maybe some more clothing retailers, maybe some more sit-down restaurants and things like this. And this is the data we use to take to those retailers and restaurants to prove that. In the past, they would take some chances, but in 2022, they know 1,000% if they'll be successful based on looking at data, just based on other locations that they have. They know that they can look at, these few traits right here and know without a doubt that if they open up a location, they'd be successful. We we also ran a secondary retail trade area, and this is also a tool that we utilize, showing that consumer that might not be coming quite as much, but still coming fairly often. And that downtown or that secondary retail trade area is right at 220,000, which is extremely strong. Incomes are good, educational, entertainment, race distribution, age, everything's good there. So that's kind of a brief overview of two of the reports that we provide. And then we also do a primary retail trade area demand outlook. In the past, we have done a traditional gap and leakage analysis, but we've seen retailers and restaurants kind of shift more to the demand outlook that shows, okay, here's what the demand is now for these specific sectors, but what is it projected out a few years? So what's that 2026 demand? What's that growth number? So it breaks it down based on NAICS codes. We're going to have an in-house model that we use on this, taking, demand and sales, national averages, and then, looking at incomes and sales for the trade area and the community as well to, determine this report. So we've found that this has been extremely successful in recruiting retailers and restaurants, and it also helps us kind of know who we need to go after. If you're taking a quick glance at this, you see a negative 0.64 compound annual growth rate for furniture and home furnishing stores. That tells us, okay, maybe there's not a need for some more furniture stores. That's not what we want to spend our time on. So, this kind of lets us know, okay, here's the type of retailers and restaurants that we kind of need to go after and target and bring into Minot. And then also this is kind of breaking that down a little bit more into some different NAICS codes, into some different sectors. And then we really kind of get into the recruitment. So like I said earlier, everything is really scientific based. So retailers and restaurants, they know what fits their model for them to be successful. So we kind of take a deep dive into these numbers in-house, and we say, okay, these are the retailers and restaurants that should be here that might have overlooked you in the past. How can we get them to come? And, a big focus of that is when we hear back and say, okay, we like what we see, but where are you going to put us? So we put a heavy emphasis on available sites in town, because we want to make these brokers and site selectors' job as easy on them as possible. So we want to know, okay, if X quick service restaurant's interested and, they want an acre, we want to be able to send them all the 1 to 2 acre sites in town that might be a fit for them. So these site profiles just kind of help speed up the process. That's our major goal, is get these retailers, these restaurants on the ground, get them for a site visit, get them in the car with, the team there, and kind of see what's going on, outside of just looking at things on Google Maps, because Minot's kind of a little bit different. Once you're actually there, it tells a little bit different story. So, the site profiles are definitely a big part of what we do. And then I'm not sure if this is included in y'all's packet, but I want to talk a little bit about recruitment. I'm going to be very generic with some of the names that we use in this. Just because, doing this in the past, some of these names can get out, and the next thing it's in the paper, and word gets back to a national restaurant brand, and they say, well, what's going on? There's a write-up in the paper about us coming and these type things. So I'll be very brief about this, but we're working with a national sandwich concept, actually 2 national sandwich concepts that are under the same restaurant brand group called Focus Brands. We met with them in Las Vegas in December at the big ICSD show. We have a very large footprint out there where we set up, meetings for our client communities out there where they can come and kind of sit in and, kind of see, what we're doing, on the outside talking to retailers and restaurants, but we met with Focus Brands while we were there, and they said they would like to be in Minot. Both of these concepts would like to be in Minot, but they currently do not have an active franchisee. But we have followed up with available sites, and that's something you'll hear me say about not having an active franchisee at the moment. And I'm kind of working with the team there to kind of figure out a way to kind of approach that, and that's kind of the goal with some of my meetings in town tomorrow. But kind of moving forward, we're also working with a national smoothie concept. This is in quotes kind of what they said. They said, "Thanks for reaching out. We do have Minot on our plans for development, but don't have an active franchisee." So that's kind of another one to add to that franchisee list. We're working with a national shoe concept department store. They said, "We're very interested in Minot, and they are currently viewing available sites in town that we have sent over to them." So depending on the type brand, whether it's a quick service restaurant or a sit down restaurant or a clothing store, we might send them sites. They might be interested. We might not hear back for 2 or 3 weeks, just because it takes them time to task that site up their chain of command and to get things approved. And then it goes into the portion where we kind of discuss pricing and working with landowners and those type things. But that's kind of where we stand with that national shoe concept. We're also working with a supermarket chain. They said that they are unable to open a location in Minot currently due to distribution issues. They did not give me a time on when that would be resolved, but they did say that they were interested in Minot. So that's just kind of one that we're gonna touch base with every so often. A national sit-down restaurant, they said we would love to be in Minot. They opened another North Dakota location 2 years ago that is doing extremely well, but they're kind of like the other ones and need a franchisee. Working with an upscale convenience store, very interested in Minot. We've also sent them, quite a few sites in town. They've kind of narrowed that down to a few, and similar to the shoe concept, are kind of passing that up their chain of command. Working with a franchise-based Chinese restaurant, we had a sit-down meeting with them at ICSC in Las Vegas as well. They are currently viewing sites in the market, and I'm waiting to hear back and confirm if they currently have a franchisee that own rights to develop in Minot. A national membership-based superstore. Minot is not currently a target for us, but I would definitely keep on file and reach out should it become a priority. And that might be taken as negative, but I'll tell you that a no now does not mean a no in 2 years. And this retailer recruitment, it's a long-term game. Like I said, our goal is to get these retailers and restaurants to the market. And we've worked a lot of projects for 4 and 5 years, and our first year or our second year, we had success, but there were some that we targeted and they said, okay, we're not interested. And then years down the road, we had success in helping them locate in that community. So keep in mind that a no now is not always a no down the road. So don't take that too negatively. We're also working with an arts and crafts store. They really like the market and currently reviewing a large vacancy in town. And same thing with a fabric and craft store. So there are 2 larger footprint stores that are very interested in Minot for a location and currently reviewing a specific site. A national chickens concept. We've had some conversation with the franchisee that owns the rights to Minot. Just kind of talking through a few sites in town. He was kind of picking our brain about a few things. He's worried about some ingress and egress for a location. It was close to Culver's, and we kind of talked to that. So I've talked to him quite a few times about that. So, that's one that you can kind of be looking out for in the near future. And then we're also looking and working with a discount furniture store. There wasn't, like I said, we haven't put a large focus on that. But when we were at ICSC, we were in a meeting for another client community, and I had a existing client list, and they kind of saw we were working in my night and said, okay, we want to be there. And so we've kind of had some conversations with them about that. But, that's kind of where we stand in the process so far. So we've really put a focus on the data, finishing all that up, and now we're focused on the recruitment and have 5 or 6 really, really good prospects that we're pushing on. Just need to get a little bit more feedback on the specific sites that they're looking at, where they want to be, get them some pricing. But kind of where we stand 6 months into this, we're super excited with the feedback we've had. Kind of in all the amount of interested retailers, restaurants and clothing stores that are showing interest in Minot.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kofer. I would look to the council if they have any questions on the very extensive presentation, by the way. Thank you. It was 24 pages that is available on the city's website right now, all of that information and data that was presented. Alderman Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question, Mr. Kofer. Do any of your reports, or is there any information that you can pull that discusses leakage of, like, the 2 local Minot zip codes going down to another market like Bismarck? Is there anything showing how much leakage we have there?
Yeah, so we, kind of like I said, we've gotten away from running that leakage analysis, but we can run one of those to kind of see what that looks like specifically in-house for y'all's personal use. Like I said, we've kind of gotten away from it on the recruitment side, but it's not hard for us to run a leakage analysis, kind of the old school, to get that to y'all, and so you can see what specific sectors you're leaking into.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kofer? Alderman Patagula.
Yes, thank you. I guess first of all, I wanted to compliment you on your work. This is remarkably detailed and should prove very useful. I'm not in the retail field, but I think it's important that our citizens have a broad range of retail and eating establishments, goods and services that they could take advantage of, and that certainly will improve our quality of life. I had specific questions about 5 things. Maybe you don't have the information now, but if you don't, if you could provide them later. I think, again, what impressed me was the data, the level of data-based decision-making that you and Jonathan and the other people here will be doing, and that the companies will be relying on. I think some of what we've heard kind of confirms what we've suspected. For example, that people come from Williston, as far away as Williston, routinely. But I think quantifying that is going to be very helpful, particularly the kinds of establishments that we're seeing and the growth that we expect or don't expect. I think that'll be very useful. But I had 5 specific things I wanted to ask about that have been part of our kind of thinking over the years, and wanted to see if you had any input on them. Any thoughts about the influence of our labor market, particularly the very low unemployment rate here? Is that a problem? Is that something we should be concerned about? Is that something good, something bad?
So we're running into that all over the country. And there's been some franchisees we've worked with that have kind of been a little bit hesitant to open some locations. They said, okay, are we going to be able to find the employees and those type things? But, in the past few years that we kind of seen this be more of a problem, it hasn't been, make or break to where somebody's like, we're going to step away from this deal because I just don't think we're going to get employees. They seem to always find employees. So, I don't think it's something you should be overly worried about because everybody, all the communities in the country right now are dealing with this, that are your size and smaller.
Okay. The second question I had was in terms of our population. We've heard that 50,000 is kind of a magic number. How significant do you feel that is?
Yeah. So are you talking about in regards to, the type retailers and restaurants you can attract with that number?
Is it more the overall trade area rather than the specific size of the city?
Yeah. So, we rely on that trade area because everybody who's coming in and eating and working in Minot don't always, they don't live in Minot. You're pulling people from, out of the community that are working every single day. Like I said, we met with, kind of going back into the data. So we met with Focus Brands at ICSC, and they represent a very well-known sandwich shop that, I asked our contact with them, I said, his name's Freddie Luster. I said, what percentage of sales do y'all do for lunch versus, evening sales versus dinner sales? And he said, we do 70% during the day. So, that just shows the importance of, okay, are we going to market, just what that community population is, or do we want to market what that daytime population is? How much Minot swells during the day with people coming elsewhere to shop and eat? So we kind of look at that. 50,000 is definitely that threshold. But when you're at 150,000 for your primary retail trade area, that's extremely strong and speaks volumes.
The third one I had was in terms of the interstate highway. Is that more for manufacturing an issue and distribution rather than retail?
So can you go a little more in depth on that?
Sure. We've always heard or often heard that lack of an interstate highway in Minot or coming to Minot has inhibited our growth, and that other cities that have interstates like Bismarck and Grand Forks and Fargo are at an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's hurting you on a large scale to where, kind of on our end where somebody's going to say, okay, well, we always, we want to be on, an intersection off an interstate and things like that. I mean, if you take a look at the retail base that you have right now with the mall and Shields doing the expansion and Target and things like that, I mean, that's not a major concern to me with the interstate at all. I think that, the amount of retail and restaurants that you have currently for a community your size and a trade area your size is a lot. So, in this case, I don't think it's a very large factor as compared to other communities throughout the country we've worked in.
The fourth question I had was the influence of the air base, because we have a much more cosmopolitan population, I think, than most middle American small towns. People maybe have had experiences with certain kinds of establishments where they've lived before, where they're from, and they come here and wonder if they're looking for these kinds of things and perhaps not buying because they don't see them, or being a potential source of labor.
Yeah, so that's a tough question. So, you're still pulling a large majority. Everybody that's at the Air Force Base is coming and shopping in Minot. I mean, I know there's some options on base of places to eat and restaurants like that. That would be one I probably need to get back with you on, just to where I could feel comfortable giving you, a perfectly accurate, answer, something that, I'm confident on that.
I'd be really interested in that. And the final question I have in terms of the fact that we're a college town. I mean, it's not like Iowa City, University of Iowa with, 45,000 students, or Michigan, Ann Arbor with 50,000, and many professional schools. Is that a factor for us?
Yes, 100%. Because, oftentimes those college students aren't going to show up in your community population or even that retail trade area population. So, that's kind of what I will go back to is, telling that story. That's a marketing tool for us is, college students have disposable income, to spend on food and drink and things like that. That's something that's extremely important to retailers and restaurants. And, they take a look at that and knowing, okay, there's X number of college students and, they need places to eat, they need places to drink and things like that. So that's definitely something that we utilize on our marketing efforts on our end.
Okay, thank you very much. That's been very educational for me, and I'm sure it'll be even more valuable and educational for the people who are in the hospitality business and in the retail business.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions for Mr. Kofer at this time?
I have a question for Mr. Stewart.
Go ahead, Alderwoman Evans.
Could you remind us of like our relationship with Retail Coach and I'm having a hard time recalling like what's next and how long are we going to have the services of this amazing company?
Mr. Mayor, Alderwoman Evans, if I recall correctly, I think it was a 3-year contract.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's renewable each year. So I think it can be renewed up to 3 years, but it's not necessarily a guarantee that it's a set 3-year contract. So if we're happy with them, we can extend for an additional 2 1-year terms. But again, their focus is doing a lot of these data analytics, presenting these analytics to potential matches in a format that they use to analyze their decisions. And so you heard him talk about the transition away from the leakage analysis now to more what is the demand going to be over the next 5 years, because that's what the businesses are doing. That's how they're making their decisions. And so the advantage we have here is, one, they have, because they represent multiple clients throughout the country, they have the ability to know the decision makers and the contacts within these businesses and help us connect as a community to those decision makers, and particularly at the ICSC conference. But more importantly is the data analytics based off of this that is a benefit even to our current existing local businesses. So for example, he gave you the analytics with regards to the downtown specifically. Where are we drawing from? One of the meetings we'll have tomorrow is with the downtown business owners, as well as the Downtown Business Professional Association, where they will go over this data specifically and how they can use this to make business decisions to strengthen them as a downtown and as a business that's located downtown. And so this isn't just about recruiting national brands, it's strengthening everybody. From existing businesses to small locally owned businesses to national brands, because if you're going to have a strong economy, you have to have a mix of that within your community. And so he'll be meeting with the downtown business representatives tomorrow as well. In addition, you saw several comments there about, well, we're interested in coming, but we need to find a franchisee. So to help address that issue, we have meetings with local bankers tomorrow to try and connect with those that they're familiar with that maybe have resources or are looking for investment opportunities to invest their funds and their money. As well as we have a meeting with the Realtor Association tomorrow and connecting to what retail sites are available, what commercial sites are available, and who they're working with. They'll have several one-on-one meetings. So those are meetings that are general meetings that multiple participants will come to, but they also have some one-on-one meetings scheduled with like the ownership of the mall, the Dakota Square Mall, as well as developers like Epic and some of those that may be doing significant mixed-use redevelopment within our community, and trying to make that connection, provide that data. And as the mayor alluded to earlier, all these data analytics are available through a dashboard on the city's website. We pay for it, we get the data, but any local business or anyone outside of our community that's considering opening a business or investing in a business within our community has access to that data and that information on the dashboard, even to a much more specific, detailed level than what's even been presented this evening. So again, all those are available to the public. Again, providing that opportunity for retail growth within our community, to strengthen our position as a regional draw. It's something that we need to continue to do. And I think Retail Coach has been a good partner. I've been very impressed with the numbers. You talked about the success we've had in 6 months here with interest. It took probably 2 or 3 years to get that in the previous community I was in. And so to already be at this level this quickly out of the gate is a huge positive, which again I think shows the strength and the resiliency that this community has, that the mayor highlighted in his State of the City address here last week, and those types of things. All these indicators show that we're very strong. We're weathering this economic challenges that much of the country is facing very well, and I think we're coming out better and stronger with this. And this relationship with Retail Coach helps us to further that and emphasize that, but more importantly, helps us to make more smart decisions as far as investment and conscientious recruitment to our community. That we're working smarter, not necessarily harder. So.
And I just want to follow up with
Definitely.
thanking you, Harold, for bringing like this whole Retail Coach idea to us and encouraging us to take a chance and do it, because so far I'm really liking it, and I'm seeing how this is going to be really helpful for our community. So I appreciate you putting it on our radar and pushing us a bit. So thank you.
Mr. Kofer, did you have a little follow-up on that?
No, I Harold kind of touched it, perfectly. We worked with Harold for a long, long time, and so he knows what we do very well. But one thing I want to emphasize is the type of recruitment we do is targeted. We're not just trying to fill a vacancy in a strip center with anybody we can find. We want to bring somebody in that's going to benefit the community. So that's one thing I wanted to mention to y'all. Everything that we do is very targeted. It's a strategic approach. It's not just come one, come all. We're very selective about who we're targeting, and we feel that those type brands that we're in touch with, everybody will be really excited about.
Any last questions for Mr. Kofer at this time?
No, but I sure hope he gets a plane tonight.
No, I think I'm good, and I apologize not being there. I don't like to do these type things over the phone because I like to be able to see faces and interact and those type things. But I'm glad it worked out to where I could jump on tonight. But next time I will be there in person to make up for it. So thank you all for y'all's time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kofer, and safe travels coming in.
Definitely. See y'all.
All right, that takes care of 10.2. Just one more item under miscellaneous and discussion.
Kyle Kofer.
I think that's him
Now
exiting. Some of the discussion prior to the meeting tonight was on all of our action items being budget amendments. And the question from staff is whether or not those need to be under action items or whether they should be under perhaps some threshold under the consent. So the question that was posed, perhaps maybe we could look to staff to develop a recommendation coming forward on maybe a dollar amount and or percentage of original bid to bring to council on whether that should be an actionable item or listed under consent, and keeping in mind that consent items can always be pulled out for individual discussion. So I would look to the council if anybody has any concerns with that on whether or not to have staff bring forward a recommendation on that.
Do we have to make a motion? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, not a problem. Alderman Janser, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that's something that makes sense to look at. Certainly a $1,200 budget amendment on some large contract where the amount is not material to the project probably wouldn't have to be an action item. On the other hand, if it is some larger or substantial portion of the expenditure, then maybe it should be put in action item so that it's discussed for sure if need be. So,
Alderwoman Evans.
Do we need to make a motion? you think?
I don't believe so at this time. We can just direct staff to bring forward a recommendation for consideration on budget amendments, given a percentage and/or dollar amount, probably both, given the nature, as Alderman Janser had pointed out. Mr. City Manager, do you have any questions on the idea?
No, at the end of the day, again, we're trying to balance your time, but at the same time, we're trying to balance that with transparency
Right.
for you as an elected body and for the public in general. But at the same time, some of these can be handled probably a bit more administratively or, again, handled more efficiently on a consent agenda. But we didn't want to make any changes without some input from you as the elected body as far as which changes were appropriate or not appropriate. So if there does seem to be some interest in better balancing that, staff can review through that, develop a policy, which then obviously the council can consider or changes they feel appropriate. Again, trying to keep that balance of efficiency versus transparency.
Alderman Pittner.
Yeah, I'm all about efficiency and finding those things. Again, we had a budget amendment for on a single vehicle. I think last meeting we had multiple vehicles that were approaching $100,000 budget amendment. So again, if it's, I have some reservations. If we break them out, it might not seem as cumbersome, but small holes sink big ships. So again, I tread lightly on doing too much of a administrative approval on it. But again, I look forward to and I welcome taking a look at a possible policy on handling these things.
And I think the idea would be we would still have to approve any item. It would be on whether it's in the consent area or whether it's pulled out for or listed as individual discussion. And I think staff has a pretty good idea based on percent and or pricing on where that threshold should be. And if not, we can certainly provide that input and guidance forward. So, okay. Any other items under miscellaneous and discussion that need to be discussed for the good of the order then? Okay, that takes us to our liaison reports. Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. Start with the Renaissance Board. I am the liaison. Held a meeting last week. We approved 2 new facade improvement projects for downtown businesses. Individuals are starting to subscribe to the program, and we're still in full swing. So again, excited about that. This morning I sat in the focus group with Alderman Padragula and other community partners for the Minot's comp plan that is underway on the parks, open spaces, trails group. So again, great discussion, a lot of great information that was shared there. Also said in the Recruitment Fund Committee meeting, this was spurred from our Tourism Recovery and Resiliency Agreement with Visit Minot. Again, we meet regularly as needed, but very regularly to discuss events coming to Minot and different groups that we work with to help grow those events. And again, I can't express how impactful these events, whether it be a 2-day wrestling tournament or a basketball tournament, how impactful these are when you actually look at the numbers of hundreds of thousands of dollars that come into the community from outside of Ward County and get poured into here over a short period of time. So again, exciting work there, and I look forward to sharing more in the future.
Thank you, Alderman Pittner. Alderman Janser.
I have no meetings to report on, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I too was took part in the Economic Development Focus Group last week, and they're going to continue that. I think they're going to come back with some type of report or follow-up in April. And then the Zoning Ordinance Steering Committee, the changes that we had from our last meeting will be in front of the Planning Commission on March 1st. Okay, that concludes my report.
Alderwoman Evans.
Oh, I do. So Ward County Planning Commission, most folks probably know Ward County has been involved in some lawsuits about the right-of-way ordinance, and the Planning Commission had made a recommendation some time ago to the Ward County Commission on how to or urging them to resolve this. So this month, the Ward County Commission has passed on first reading an amendment to how they go about with right-of-ways. So previously, landowners were expected to donate right-of-way 75 feet on each side of county roads. And that was the provision that was under lawsuit. And so they have done away with that and will make it that the county must purchase property beyond the statutory 35 feet easement on either side of a section. So that was a pretty big lift. They also directed the recorder's office to start coming up with the logistics of giving back some of the land that was donated. So that is an ongoing process. And logistically, they recognize there's challenges to that, but want to try and make that attempt. So the Planning Commission was happy to see that our recommendation, because it was sort of, always coming up in the course of our zoning redrafts. This issue was like the albatross, so it's good. Hopefully we can, get back to the zoning revisions. Library has a new boiler. I know Janet's excited, but it's a good thing. They're slowly bringing back in-person programming, so that is, I think, well received both by staff and our community, so that's great. And the board last week did some moving around and provided for the library to start. They're going to do a children's library remodel. That's really cool. And so we've moved that up to 2022. So they'll be starting that this year in lieu of another project that we had to push back for other reasons. So that's exciting. We'll have, a new revamped children's library. I also have been, just came actually before the meeting from a focus group on the comprehensive plan. I'm on the housing and community character. So it's really cool. It was a good group of people giving input. And family shelter is coming along. Project B is, their PUD documents will be reviewed by Planning Commission, and if everything goes according to plan, hopefully the bid can go out in March 2022, and this again is for the family shelter and some LMI housing on South Broadway. So that is exciting and moving forward. Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you, Alderwoman Evans, and I want to congratulate you and Alderman Patagula through the Planning Commission on the county side. I know that's no easy task, and I was smiling simply because those recommendations were made in 2016, and to get to the point of the commission now moving forward on that is a heavy lift. So for you and the rest of the Planning Commission, Alderman Patagula and the rest, congratulations.
It's a formidable group on that Planning Commission, so.
Alderman Patagula.
Thank you. Following up on two of the reports that previously were given, I have two other ones. In terms of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, Paul and I participated in a focus group today. It went very well and better than I expected. We looked at recreational areas, parks, trails, things like that, and a broad range of people involved, and it's very good that at least three of us have been involved so far in these focus groups trying to represent the community. Their website, I hope, is operational now, and just to remind people that this is called Minot 2040, that we're planning ahead in terms of land use and things like that, hopefully for the next 20 years. So I would encourage you to go to the website and offer input if you'd like and just kind of see what's happening. We're hoping that this document will guide our development, and I think it dovetails very nicely with the report from the retail group today and all the other things we're doing in terms of finally some long-range planning and trying to make our decisions based on accurate data. So that's going fairly well, it looks like. The second report I want to follow up on is Carrie's involvement and my involvement in the County Planning Commission. The group, from my perspective professionally, has been much more functional lately and much more been accomplishing much more. And right now we're starting to look at, besides this issue of right-of-ways, we're starting to look at specific land planning issues, and they've been distributing, and we've been starting to go over what I think are fairly sexy maps of the county and how we propose to use certain lands. The priority everybody agrees on is maintaining production agriculture and trying to guide development in a rational kind of fashion. Looking ahead again, maybe 50, 75 years in terms of where we want to put different activities and what we want to allow in certain areas. So I think as Minot grows, this will become an increasingly important and valuable kind of activity. And again, dovetails nicely with some of the planning that's been going on at the city level. Like I said, in the past, I've been sort of frustrated with the group, but I think it's improved and become much more functional lately and much more productive. So that's good news. I wanted to also point out in terms of two other areas, the Commission on Aging. I'm our representative to that group, which meets monthly, and we just met this past Thursday. Things seem to be going well. They're doing well financially, to some extent because of the COVID funds and because of what the city is contributing. But a lot of people depend on the feeding programs of the Commission on Aging. On a typical day, they deliver 320 meals a day to people in the Minot area. Which is very important, keeps people in their homes, keeps people safer, rather than having to cook meals if they're elderly and maybe have some visual or other problems. And they get about 20 takeout meals a day. Then they have facilities throughout the 7-county area, and a large number of other people either go to eat or have meals delivered from those facilities. They also help businesses, restaurants in the small towns stay active. So it really is a very significant program in terms of improving the quality of life and nutrition for our older residents. I actually feel really glad we're actively involved in that and sponsor them significantly. It really makes a huge difference in a person's life if they're elderly and maybe not as active, to have someone come into their home and check on them every day. From a psychological standpoint, that's very valuable to have that connection with the outside world and to have good nutrition. It also, I think, is a valuable opportunity for volunteers to go out and do good in the world. So from my professional perspective, this is an absolutely wonderful kind of activity, and it helps people, again, stay functional, stay healthy in the community, and avoid utilizing congregate living and other resources. So I continue to be very pleased and impressed with what the Commission on Aging is doing. And the final group I represent us on is the Ward County Emergency Preparedness Committee, or Steering Committee. We typically talk about events in the community, things that might pose challenges in terms of safety and preparedness. We also have a briefing every month from an organization in terms of how they look at emergency planning issues. This month we heard from the Hess Corporation, their emergency manager, and she spoke about all the stuff that Hess and the other oil-related companies in the region do to assure safety of well facilities, pipelines, and trucks. Found out that they have a consortium of organizations, and particularly in terms of trying to keep the lake safe, they have pre-positioned equipment in various sites around this part of the state, especially on the lake, things like booms, boats, protective gear, things that can be put into action if there should be a spill or an accident of some kind. I had no idea they had this extensive a private base of resource and support, and they all work collaboratively on this. They even have it organized as to how they would feed staff members of theirs that would come onto a scene to help clean up after a spill or something like that. So that helped me feel much better. It isn't just our police and fire and EMS people that prepare and plan for contingencies, but also private industry is very heavily involved. And they also contribute to our public safety resources, but they do a lot on their own. So it was a very educational session this past Thursday. So there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes to keep us safe that most people don't know about. And if you learn about those things, they help you feel a lot safer. So that's my report.
Alderwoman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only had one meeting this last month, and that was the Service Basin Planning Council bi-monthly meeting. And, you know, our agenda is filled with items that from smaller communities and counties in our area, but the agenda item that related to the city of Minot was the Business Accelerator Fund. And in 2019, I'm sure that many of you will remember that through the Magic Fund, we did help fund that Business Accelerator Fund. And the good news is that many grants, and I think they're in the neighborhood of about $70,000, many grants have been awarded to individuals starting small businesses in the area. And so that's definitely something to be happy about. It certainly dovetails into the conversation that we had earlier with the retail coach. And so it's just another tool in the toolbox for businesses wanting to start something up in Minot or the area, so it was good news. And that's everything that I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Alderwoman Olson. Just very briefly on my side, the city manager and myself have also had the opportunity to participate in the comp plan input intakes. Team Minot did have a breakfast this morning out at Minot Air Force Base with quite a bit of discussion actually towards the kind of social atmosphere and quality of life aspects of a lot of the first-time folk or first-time station folks between that ages of 18 to 24 period. So Alderman Janser, I should say Mark Janser, who happens to be an alderman, has been heading a lot of those discussions, is going to be participating in a lot more in-depth moving forward on that. And then we did also have a meeting today with the Minot Area Chamber EDC, and this was taking a look at intermodal going into executive session and kind of the future planning on that. And then finally, tomorrow, Project B is going to be receiving a $1,000 donation courtesy of our Citizen of the Year, Mr. Eric Locken. Congratulations again to him. Was named Citizen of the Year. Sponsored by, well, Farmers Union Insurance. So that one is, we're going to actually present that tomorrow to Project B on behalf of Mr. Locken. So very grateful for all of the folks that showed up for the State of the City on Friday. Understand that a few couldn't, but it was I think our best turnout that we've had. And I think we found the key to success, and that is lunch. So that is all I have today. And I think that is the end of our liaison reports. So if there is nothing else, we're in line for our last item, and that is adjournment. Motion by Alderman Pittner to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Alderwoman Evans. Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign.